Good evening, friends. Welcome to this next episode of a very popular series on managing small hospitals. Uh, I am Dr. Neeraj Kumar, your host for today, and I'm a pediatrician by profession and a doctor entrepreneur for last about 25 years, promoter of Chaitanya Hospital, which is a mother and child hospital in Chandigarh. Before we start today's session, I'll really like to thank all of you for tremendous response to last 3 4 sessions, uh, especially related to income tax and insurance for small hospitals. Because the messages I'm getting is that the information which has been given is really helping our doctor friends and colleagues in better management of their clinics and hospitals, and even financial benefits also they're getting, and are becoming more confident in compliances also. So today's topic is also very important. It is labor and employment laws as applicable to medical establishments. Uh, do you know how many labor laws we have in our country? We have 44 central laws, and there are many state laws also. So just imagine a poor doctor who is having his own clinic or a small nursing home and trying to grapple with complying with 44 and many more laws, and which keep on changing also. And most of these laws, even if it is a 20-25 employee enterprise or maybe a 250 employee enterprise, are almost the same. So just imagine a small nursing home trying to comply with all these requirements. And that is why we thought that let us have overview of these labor laws. And today we have a real expert in this, Advocate DP Sharma, who has been in this field of labor and HR and employment laws since last 4 decades. He is a leading personality in this region and has been frequently uh, presenting the legal issues in these fields in industrial tribunals as well as labor authorities also. So I'm sure that by the end of today's session, all of us will have a much more clarity on these laws. We'll have will analyze that are we missing out on something, uh, and we'll try to make it a very interactive session, informal and interactive session. So probably after each law is completed, we can have a discussion and question answer session. You can either post your queries in the chat, or you can even unmute yourself and ask the question directly. So I'll not stand between you and Mr. Sharma now, and I invite Advocate DP Sharma to start his talk, please. Advocate DP Sharma, please.
Thank you, Doctor. Good evening, sir.
Welcome, welcome. It is, no, we have to just increase the volume, and maybe come closer. Yeah.
Okay, right. So first of all, I thank you, Dr. Neeraj Kumar, for his initiative to bring us together for the present deliberations on the labor laws. Friends, as Dr. Neeraj Kumar has said, there are more than 40 enactments which directly deals with the labor laws and employment laws. But today, because of the time constraint, I have chosen and selected only around 10 enactments for today's deliberations. So,
is the voice clear? Can I ask delegates, is the voice clear? Audible?
No, sir. No, sir. Voice is not clear.
है ना? या शर्मा जी थोड़ा सा आगे आ जाएं या देखें, use headphone or something, because it is less, the intensity of sound is less.
I'm putting headphone.
थोड़ा volume कम है. Yeah.
Yes. Now are you getting?
Now it is fine. Now it is fine. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah. I will have to again repeat. Sorry.
No, it is fine. It is fine. Yeah.
Dr. Neeraj Kumar, I thank you him for his initiative for today's gathering. And friends, as you aware that today's deliberation pertains to labor laws and employment laws only. So in this context, I would like to share with you that there are more than 40 enactments which directly deals with labor and employment laws. So because of the time constraint, I have selected only 10 enactments, which in my opinion are important for the compliance point of view. So I will be taking one by one, and at the end of each enactment, questions can be put to other. So first of all, I will be taking the Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952. This act is usually called Contributory Provident Fund because under this act, both employer and employee are to contribute. And the objective of this act is that an idea and spirit of cultivating a spirit in the employees for compulsory and regular saving. And under this act, basically 3 benefits are regulated. One is the provident fund, which is called Employees Provident Fund. And second one is the pension fund scheme. And third one is the Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Fund, which is in common sense, it is called Insurance Fund under the Employees Provident Fund Act. This act applies to every establishment or a factory in which 20 or more employees are employed. However, this act can be applied in an establishment even where the number is less than 20 on optional basis, subject to the condition that both the employer and employee jointly make a request to the department. So it is contributed by the employer and employee at the rate of 12% of the monthly wages of an employee, subject to a maximum limit, salary limit of rupees 15,000 per month, which is called basic wages, not gross wages. Basic wages here means the amount paid or payable to an employee, which includes all allowances. Earlier, there was a different situation. Now, the Honorable Supreme Court, in a recent judgment which was pronounced on 29th of February 2020, has defined that basic wages includes all allowances which are paid to an employee regularly on monthly basis. So these are 3 benefits. One benefit is the PF benefit. Under this benefit, there are 2 benefits because the interest which is being paid by the department is comparatively very higher as compared to the banks and other institutions. Number 1. Number 2, when an employee leaves the organization, he can withdraw all his accumulation along with interest. Number 2, pension benefit. Under the pension benefit, there are 2 schemes. One is the employees pension scheme, which took place in November 1995. And under this scheme, if an employee works for 10 years, maybe with one employer or more employers, if he remains member of the fund for 10 years and thereafter he leaves the organization and starts his own business and joins some other organization where this act is not applicable, then he will, at the time of his superannuation, that is at the age of 58 years, he will get the benefit from the pension from the PF department. Second one, that in case the member dies while on duty, then his dependents, his legal heirs, they will be getting the pension from the PF department, subject to the condition that he would have contributed, he could have at least contributed for 30 days, that is 1 month, under this scheme. Last one is the assurance benefits, which is called insurance benefit basically. Under the scheme, if somebody dies while on duty, his dependents will get insurance benefit. That is minimum up to the tune of rupees 2.5 lakhs and maximum rupees 6 lakhs. But under this is a stringent act if somebody does not deposit the contribution in time, the date is 15th of every month. Every month, the employer has to deposit both the contributions by 15th of every month for the preceding month. If he fails to make the payment, then there is a clause of penal damages to the tune of 37% penal damages. Then non-deposit of BPF contribution amounts to criminal breach of trust, and the defaulting employer is liable for imprisonment up to 3 years. So under this act, since for the last 4 or 5 years, everything is online. All compliances of this act are online, and the employer is not supposed to maintain any record manually, except the inspection book. So these are the, this is about this act.
So can we take questions
So
on
if
this?
anybody has any question?
Yeah. Anyone has any question, they can unmute yourself and ask the question directly also. The Supreme Court judgment of 2019 is considered a very major judgment, isn't it, Mr. Sharma?
Yes, it is the latest and it is the final judgment on this issue.
Yes. Yeah, because before that, to decrease the contribution, many times special allowances and these categories were created. But now all that is included in the calculation of basic wages. So what is not included? Can I ask what is not included in calculation of basic wages for PF?
As of date, only house rent allowance. House rent allowance is not included.
Okay.
Subject to the condition of 15,000 rupees per month. So suppose there is a 15,000 rupees basic of somebody, and you can exclude the content of house rent allowance. On rest of the amount, PF is to be continued.
Okay. And if we have to see how much HRA we have to keep of the total salary, is there any guideline on that HRA should be minimum 10%, 20%? Yeah. Yes, please.
Neither the Provident Fund Act nor any other act prescribes any limit or percentage of house rent allowance. However, as per prevalent practice, it ranges between 25% to 40% of the basic.
Okay. And is it essential that we keep it the same for all employees, or we can have some variation also individually?
No, you will have to have uniform salary structure for everybody. You cannot have 2 or 3 set of salary structure. Those who are covered under PF, there must be uniformity in the salary structure.
Right. This EDLI also is very interesting because a few days back, even I am there for so many years now managing hospital, but I was not very clear about it. So a couple of months back, I was looking at, because these are COVID times, I thought maybe we should give insurance, life insurance kind of thing to our employees. And when I went into the details, that I came to know that through EDLI, these category of employees are already getting a life insurance of 2.5 to 6 lakhs. So I was really not aware of this. So it is a very important provision that if anything happens to employee, then his family, his spouse, his children will get this amount as an insurance. Many times, Sharmaji, we find that once the employee leaves, then they have to keep on coming back for clearing, maybe correcting some forms and all. So what care we can take when we enroll an employee for PF?
Yes, it's a very good question. So somebody joins your organization, you will have to ensure that he is not already covered. If he is already covered, then it is irrespective of the fact whether his basic pay is more 15,000 rupees or more, he is coverable employee. So for that matter, you will have to take Form 11 from him, which is a declaration from his side that he was not already covered. If he is already covered, then he will deem to be coverable employee under the PF Act.
Okay. So that means even if we are employing somebody who has more than 15,000 basic wages, but if he already has been a member of PF, then he has to continue with that.
He will be doomed to be the member automatically from the date of joining. with the company.
Right. But if somebody doesn't declare, suppose he was a member of PF in the previous organization, and now because his wages are more, he doesn't want to declare, then what we have to do?
See, today there is a documentation like the Aadhaar card. If you take a Aadhaar card from him and for 11, Aadhaar card be put on the website, and it will automatically come whether he was already covered or not covered. And accordingly, the employer can take a decision.
All right. So through Aadhaar card, we can check that whether the person has been a member of. Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions, please? Dr. Mehta, you have unmuted yourself. You want to ask something? Okay, so maybe later on we can take the next law, please, Sharma ji.
The next law is Employee State Insurance Act. This act has been enacted just to create benefits to the employees in case of sickness, maternity benefit, or employment injury. Employment injury here means during the course of employment and out of employment, means thereby arising out in the course of employment means when working on duty he meets with an accident. This is called arising in the course of employment. And an injury which is connected with the employment, that is called This act applies to every factory, every establishment in which 10 or more employees are employed. In Provident Fund, it is 20 or more employees. Here it is 10 or more employees employed. An employee here means a person who has been engaged, who has been hired, who has been employed, whose salary, gross wages. In Provident Fund, it is basic salary only. In ESI, it is gross wages of rupees 21,000. Means thereby an employee whose gross wages does not exceed rupees 21,000 rupees per month, he is coverable employee under the ESI Act. So under this act, the employer has to contribute 3.25% and employees to contribute 0.75%, totaling to 4% of the gross wages. These days, all compliances are online. Only the employer is to maintain inspection register. Under this act, there are 4 kinds of benefits. When an injured person remains absent from duty more than 2 days, means thereby if he remains absent less than 2 days on account of sickness, then he will be getting sickness benefit from the employer. But if he remains absent, being covered under ESI, remains absent on account of sickness more than 2 days, then he will be getting sickness benefit in the shape of wages from the ESI department, not from the employer. Second one is disablement benefit. It is a periodical payment to an injured person suffering from disablement of an employment injury arising of and in the course of employment. The percentage of loss is ascertained by the medical board, constitute for this purpose. Maternity benefit. Again, maternity benefit is up to a period of 26 weeks. Salary or wages, the concerned woman will get from the ESI, not from the employer. Disablement benefit is a periodical payment to the dependents of an insured person who died as a result of employment injury. So these are the 4-5 benefits. Next is the medical benefit. One is the sickness benefit. Sickness benefit means he will be getting the wages from the ESI as long as he will be sick. But medical benefit means medical treatment and reimbursement of medical expenses from the ESI department. Then, which is again an important aspect, medical care to the retired insured person. If an employee was already covered under the ESI and he remained insured person at least for 1 year and he retires, then he will be getting medical payments, medical care from the ESI subject to payment of rupees 120 per annum. Then funeral expenses. Under this act, the eldest family members of the deceased employee is entitled to get 15,000 rupees on account of funeral benefit. Then penal provision. Different punishments have been prescribed under the Act for different types of offences. For non-deposit of ESI contribution, the employer is also liable for penalty and interest. So any question if anybody wants to put?
Again, a very important law. Anybody has any questions, clarifications on this?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Radha. Yes.
सर आपने अभी सर बताया कि these are the applicability for the employees only, PF and ESI matters,
Yes.
and there are some lot of persons coming in the hospitals for the outsourced job workers, like suppose performing of puja in Sai Baba temple, like पंडित जी को हम कुछ देते हैं, कुछ amount देते हैं monthly basis पर, right sir? And some garbage person is coming for collection the daily garbage in the organization, and some gardeners, we have to pay the gardeners payments.
Yes.
Some people are coming for the paint work also
Yes.
in the organization.
Yes.
Is there any obligation of the organizations for that persons also, in case some mishappening over there on the same heads of the employees, like Pandit ji and AMC and garbage collections and gardeners payments and paint work persons who are coming in the organization? If some mishappening over there, then is the organization will be responsible for that?
First, I will take up your question under the Provident Fund Act. If anybody who does not fall in the category of employee, where employer and employee relationship does not exist, then he cannot get the benefit under the Provident Fund Act. I think point is clear to you?
Yeah, right, sir.
Talking about the Provident Fund.
Right, sir, right.
Under the ESI Act, all the persons whose services are utilized within the premises of the employer, they are entitled to the benefit of ESI. Suppose you have called a person to put a tube in your office and he meets with an accident. Then who will compensate him? So that is why a provision has been made under the ESI Act for all these miscellaneous work, that if somebody comes, then you should have a fill up the form for him, which is little bit difficult. You cannot fill up the forms and complete the formalities for each and everybody. But it would be better if you do it. Suppose gardener comes for the hospital work and you are paying him some wages, maybe on part-time basis, maybe on monthly basis, maybe on yearly basis. If something happens to him within the premises, then he will get the benefit from the ESI if you complete the formality. So formality here means, suppose some painter is there. So when you will be paying him labor charges, you are liable to pay ESI at the rate of 4% on the labor charges. So if you will not get the benefit against that payment, that will go waste. So that is why this preposition and provision has been made under the Act. Anybody who comes in connection with the work of the company within the premises and you pay labor charges on that account, then he is coverable.
तो सर ये हम कैसे वेरीफाई कैसे डिपॉजिट करवा पाएंगे सर?
Deposit same way as you are applying for the employees, you can file a separate plan on account of labor and miscellaneous expenses. Whatever you have paid during the month, you can show as labor charges. Otherwise, at the end of the year, when the inspector will come, he will check your balance sheet. Any amount paid on labor charges, he will ascertain the amount. He will ask you to pay the.
तो सर ये जो पेमेंट सपोज मैंने उसको 1000 रुपीस की पेमेंट करनी है किसी वर्कर को, आउटसाइड वर्कर को, तो सर अगर मैं उसको 1000 करूंगा कि 1000 में से डिडक्ट करके बैलेंस पेमेंट करूंगा?
Deduct करके, his share is to be deducted, not optional.
Okay sir.
These are mandatory and obligatory and.
Okay, हमें डिडक्ट करना पड़ेगा और हमें डिपॉजिट करवाना पड़ेगा.
So in a situation where somebody comes for 100 rupees or 50 rupees, so in that case, I think it would not be advisable to deduct that 0.75% from his share.
If the payments are from monthly to monthly basis, every month.
every month at the end of the month, whatever you have paid on labor charges, you will have to deposit it. Otherwise, you will have to pay later on with interest with the department.
Okay, sir.
इसमें शर्मा जी
Thank
जैसे सपोज 15 जुलाई को वर्कर आया 2 दिन के लिए एंड उस 2 डेज के लिए हमने उसको पेमेंट दी, उसका ईएसआई भी दे दिया एंड अभी हमने डिपॉजिट तो किया नहीं उसका बिकॉज वो तो हम नेक्स्ट मंथ में देंगे. यस.
No, I'm not getting clearly. Your voice is
Okay, I'll just. So suppose a worker comes for 1 week from July 15th to 22nd, and we have made payment to him and even deducted or made ESI also. But अभी ESI हमने उसका ESI डिपार्टमेंट में कंट्रीब्यूट तो किया नहीं, वो तो नेक्स्ट मंथ जाएगा. एंड ड्यूरिंग दिस वीक अगर उसका इंसिडेंट कोई हो जाता है तो he'll be eligible to get the treatment.
That is why there is a provision under the ES Act. You will have to intimate the department within 10 days from the date of coverage.
Okay, अच्छा. So
If
that is
something
also
happens
there.
to him, you can intimate the department within 10 days from that incident.
अच्छा. Okay. Right. And sometimes we take a.
Sir,
take from a
I have one
contract.
question.
Yes, Tanveer. Yes, please. Yeah. Go ahead, Tanveer.
Yes, sir. I have one question. Those who are getting, less than 21,000, they are entitled for ESI. But I see very few hospitals of ESI and clinics in many areas. So whether they are ESI has connection with any private hospitals or government hospitals of different areas to be treated. I mean, those who comes in ESI can be treated there or their families.
No, from time to time, Government of India is to declare the jurisdiction, is to declare the area to be covered under the ESI Act. And the establishments or the hospitals or the institutions, if they fall in that area, allocating from that area, then ESI benefits are available.
Because recently,
Otherwise,
yes,
those
please.
institutions are not coverable.
Yes.
Otherwise, those institutions are not coverable under that act. Suppose Sector 17 is there. If it is not declared covered area under the ESI Act, any institution which is located in Sector 17, that would not be covered under the ESI Act. So, Government of India from time to time under this sector is extending its jurisdiction area-wise, district-wise, tehsil-wise, and accordingly, Act is extended to those institutions and factories and establishments.
Yeah, recently I read that even all those which are Ayushman Bharat hospitals, probably ESI can be taken from there also if there is no hospital of ESI in the vicinity.
No, that is not legally valid.
Achha, okay.
Once the employees are not getting the benefit of the act, how can the ESI department ask for the contribution?
Okay. Right. नहीं, suppose अगर जैसे तनवीर का क्वेश्चन था कि ESI हॉस्पिटल पास में कोई नहीं है, so can they go to any other government hospital in the vicinity, or ESI is not applicable in that area?
There is a situation. Suppose somebody meets with an accident, and there is no ESI hospital nearby. Then he can go to the government hospital and he get it recommended for that purpose. Ultimately, he will get the benefit from the ESI department.
Okay. And all these benefits they start.
Sir, I have another question.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
Sir, I have another question. अगर ESI ESI contribution जो entitled उनको नहीं देते हैं कोई, उसके लिए क्या penalty है from government? I mean labor authority.
It is from the ESI department. It is a very stringent enactment is there. Prosecution of the employer is there. A prosecution can be filed against the employer who is defaulting, who is not making the payment in time. The brunts can be issued against the employer, and penalty clause is also there, interest clause is also there. There are so many punishments have been prescribed under the Act for different types of offences.
Does it answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. And Sharma ji, sometimes we engage a contractor who then sends his worker to do the work here. Then is it the responsibility of the contractor or of the hospital itself to provide this kind of thing?
The definition of employee under both the acts, under EPF as well as under the ES Act, includes all kinds of employees, whether raw, temporary, permanent, or through the contractor.
Okay.
If they are coverable, they are to be covered. If the contractor fails to make compliance, then principal employer is liable to make the compliance.
Okay. So that means we should check with the contractor whether he is doing, otherwise
Every month it has to be checked.
Okay.
Before making the payment to the contractor, it has to be checked and ensured that the contractor is making proper compliance.
Okay.
If he is not making proper compliance, his payment should not be released. This is my advice to all the employees.
Okay. Right. And all these benefits, they start immediately as an employee gets enrolled in our sheet, as he joins the organization.
From the day one. From the day one, I am giving you the example.
Right.
There is a hotel in our sector 35 which is called GK International Hotel.
Yes.
They have an arrangement with the security contractor.
Okay.
Security guard came first day. It was in the month of December. He put in heating inside the hutment and he died. On the first day itself.
Okay.
So here insured person means a person insured or insurable. So he can get the benefit from the day one itself.
Okay. And regarding our own employees also, the permanent employees, it also starts immediately as the person joins?
From the day one, from the date of joining itself.
Okay. And regarding these maternity benefits also, it starts immediately or after some time? That will be covered in maternity.
I'll take up the maternity benefit later on.
Right. And is there any difference, like if someone is under 21,000 and we have enrolled in ESI, after a couple of years his salary increases to more than 21,000, then what happens?
The calendar year is divided in two parts.
Okay.
One is from April to September and October to March. Suppose in April somebody's salary is 21,000 rupees, and in October and in August it exceeds 21,000 rupees. So it will continue to be member of the fund till 30th September, and accordingly in the other part of the year.
Okay.
So thereafter he will discontinue to be the member of the PF.
Okay. So that is the difference from PF. PF person continues, here it discontinues.
PF will continue.
Yes.
If the basic pay exceeds rupees 15,000.
Yes.
Then if his salary is increased more than 50,000 rupees per month, then he will be covered under the PF as if he is getting 50,000 rupees per month.
Yes.
But that will find up to 50,000 rupees per month.
Okay. This sickness benefit is yes, please. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
सर वन क्वेश्चन सर, यदि कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करने के लिए आता है और वो ESI सबमिट नहीं करता है, ESI सबमिट नहीं करेगा और उसकी जगह वो WC पॉलिसी हमें देता है, इस केस पे क्या करेंगे सर?
See, WC policy and ESI Act are two different things.
Yes.
WC Act is applicable to those employees who are not covered under ESI. So he cannot say this thing that I will not give. Once the principal employer is covered under ESI and PF, both these acts will automatically apply to the contract labor. So he will have to make a compliance of it.
Okay. The WC policy is not acceptable.
Acceptable in the cases where ESI Act is applicable.
Okay, sir.
So the sickness benefit is also, we should make our employees aware of it, because if someone is unwell for more than 2 days, they can
Yes.
get part of their salary.
Yes.
For the
As long
missing
as
day.
he will be on sickness leave.
Yes. Thank you, Sharma ji. We can proceed to the next law.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next one is Employees Compensation Act 1923, which is commonly known as Workmen Compensation Act. His terminology has been changed in 2019. So it is similar to that of the ESI Act, but certain conditions are different. So it is again makes a provision for payment in the shape of compensation to the employees who meets with an accident during the course of employment. So there is no salary limit and there is no staff strength is required. If one worker is there in the organization, this act will apply to that organization. And this act is not applicable to the employees, where ESI Act is applicable to those persons. It applies to all the establishments or factories and also applies to all categories of employees. Whether he may be a general manager, whether he may be a manager, whether he may be a worker, it applies to all categories of employees. So there are two kinds of compensation is permissible under this act. One is amount of compensation in case of death. In case of death, the dependents will get compensation equal to 50% of the monthly wages of the deceased multiplied by the relevant factor in the act. Similarly, for permanent total disablement, 60 is equal to 60% of the monthly wages of the deceased. When I say talking of the wages here means 15,000 rupees. 15,000 rupees the maximum limit. If somebody is getting 1 lakh rupees in a month and his dependents are to get benefit under this act, his salary will be treated as if he is getting 50,000 rupees. So when I say equal to 50%, it means 7,500 rupees. 7,500 multiplied with the relevant factor. So he will be getting the compensation in case of death and similarly 60% compensation in case of permanent total disablement. So the monthly wages has recently been increased. That is on 3rd of January 2020, 50,000 rupees. Earlier it was 8,000 rupees. Under this act, commissioner is appointed by the approved government, and he is fully competent to determine in case the employer fails to make the payment within 1 month. He is fully competent, and he is not only competent to ascertain the compensation, he is competent to put a penalty to the extent of 50% of the compensation due. It is a very stringent act. Suppose compensation amounts to 2 lakhs rupees and the employer fails to make that payment, and the dependents approached the commissioner can determine 1 lakh rupees plus 50,000 rupees more as compensation plus interest. So one thing is very, very important advice for the employer. Sometimes employers take group accident insurance policy for their employees or any other policy. So these policies are not the substitute for the policy under the Workmen Compensation Act. Employers are to take insurance policy in lieu of the Workmen Compensation Act. Otherwise, they will have to pay the compensation from their own pocket. Otherwise, they'll get the compensation from the insurance policy. So it is abstract of the act and rules are to be displayed in the premises of the establishment, which is mandatory. So, any question?
Yeah, any question? Dr. Mehta, you have raised your hand. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. You want to ask something?
Sir, what is the relevant factor?
Which chapter?
What is जो अभी compensation के बारे में जो अपनी previous slide show की थी उसमें लिखा था relevant factor.
Relevant factor is always it is multiplied by the age of the person and salary. For
Sorry, sir?
example, I'll give you the example. Suppose somebody's age is I'll get back to you this question later on. You can put me any other question. I have just
Sure, sir.
put my star to see the factor.
Okay. Okay. So basically, that means even a clinic of 3 or 4 employees. So even a clinic of 3
Yeah.
4 employees also this is applicable.
Yes, where there is no ESI applicable,
Yes.
then the employees are entitled to get the benefit of this
Okay. So
in
even a
case of
clinic. Okay.
employment injury or death.
Yes. Yes.
So somebody has put a question to me regarding the factor.
Yes.
Suppose somebody's age is 20 years, then factor is 225.22. Suppose salary is 15,000 rupees. So 7,550, we will have to take 50%.
Yes.
7,500 multiplied by 225 is equal to compensation.
Okay. So becomes a huge amount. If it's a young person, naturally
Huge
it
amount.
becomes
Yes.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is a huge amount.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is an insurance policy which an organization can take to cover for this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Insurance policy in lieu of workman compensation, not
Yes,
any other
yes.
insurance policy.
Right. Okay. So again, a very important act. Yes.
Yes.
Any
it is very
any
important.
questions? Any questions on this? Verification. Okay. So that means employees who are above 21,000 salary, they are all covered under this, and we should take WC insurance.
Yes.
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 Right.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. We can go to the next law.
Irrespective of the designation.
Yes.
Irrespective of the designation.
Yes. Right. We can go to the next law.
Now it is again the payment of Gratuity Act 1972. So it applies to every shop, every establishment, every factory where 10 or more employees are required. So gratuity shall be payable to an employee on his termination of his employment for any reason whatsoever, subject to the condition that he has put in at least uninterrupted service of 5 years. Means thereby, if somebody leaves the organization after 3 years, after 4 years, he is not entitled for gratuity. But if somebody leaves the organization after putting in continuous service of 5 years, he becomes entitled to gratuity. So the rate of gratuity is 15 days wages for every completed year of service. So 15 days wages means 15 days wages, suppose 10,000 rupees, 10,000 divided by 26 into 15 into complete year of service is equal to gratuity. And the maximum amount of gratuity as on today is 20 lakhs, which is tax free. And the amount of gratuity can be forfeited subject to the condition that the charges, if the charges against the employee are moral turpitude or etious or disorderly behavior, and those charges are proved in the inquiry, and the loss is determined through the inquiry, and to that extent that gratuity can be forfeited. Abstract is required to be placed on the notice board, which is very, very important. The nomination form under this act, the nomination form is very important. Why it is important? That in the case of death of an employee, sometimes it becomes very difficult for the employer to make the payment. So if there is a nomination form in the file of the concerned person or in a separate file, then it becomes very easy to the employer to determine to whom it should be paid. So it is obligatory on the part of the employer to take the nomination form in Form F from the employer at the time of joining, duly signed by the employee as well as by the employer, and it should be kept separately in safe custody with the employer. So penal consequences are that on default to comply with the act, imprisonment for 3 months or fine of up to rupees 10,000 is there.
Any questions on this?
Sir, I have heard and read somewhere that the number of years can be reduced to 2 years.
Yes.
From 5 years.
Not 2 years. There is a one judgment only. This is Madras High Court, which has said that if employee works for 240 days in the 5th year, that year should also be treated as a complete year. 240 days means if he gets wages or salary for 240 days in the 5th year, then that would be treated as a complete year and the employee is entitled to gratuity. There is no other law, there is no other judgment, except there is only one judgment. On this judgment, the various authorities are relying upon and determining the amount in favor of the employee.
So Sharma ji, suppose एक employee हमारा है and before joining us, he was in some other organization where he spent more than 5 years and he took gratuity from there also. So does it make any difference in this?
When I say 5 years with one single employer.
हाँ वो तो ठीक है, but
one single
amount
employer. If you got the
का,
money from the previous employer, it is over. It's over.
Okay.
It's over.
So ये जो 20 लाख है ये पहले वाले को काउंट नहीं होगा उसमें ना? This 20 lakhs is for this job only.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. And जैसे nomination जी, yes. Please continue. Yeah.
कई बिग कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं सर, वो ग्रेचुटी आफ्टर 1 year ऑफ कंप्लीशन ऑफ सर्विस के बाद ही दे देती हैं सर.
राइट.
तो सर ये कैसे पॉसिबल होता है, जैसे 5 years की जो कंडीशन होती है?
See, these days the employees are taken against CTC. So when it is taken as CTC, they normally count and determine this content on the basis of the existing salary, whereas the gratuity is to be determined on the last wages drawn. Suppose somebody has put in 20 years service, but on his last salary drawn, it has to be determined. So once somebody is giving a favorable thing, so there is no objection to anybody and it can be given. There is nobody can object to it. If employer is giving any favorable or beneficial thing to employee, instead of 5 years, he is paying the gratuity after 1 year, it can be paid. There is no complication on this.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And Sharma ji, जैसे nomination forms have to be filled for a number of things, even for PF also, ESI also. So can we have a combined nomination form? ये सबका अलग-अलग ही करना होता है?
No. Under the payment of gratuity, it is a specific and separate format.
Right.
This is called nomination form.
Okay. We can go to the next one, please. Thank you.
Okay. Now it is the payment of the Bonus Act 1965. It applies to a factory, establishment, shop or hospital where 20 or more persons are employed in an accounting year. In earlier enactments which I have discussed, there was a calendar year. But here under the payment of Bonus Act is a accounting year, which is called financial year. It starts from April to March. And employee here means a person who is getting salary, basic salary, up to ₹21,000 per month. He is entitled to gratuity. For example, if somebody's basic pay is ₹30,000, so he cannot claim bonus as a matter of right. However, it is the discretion of the management to pay him or not to pay him. So base care means base plus DNS allowance, if any. So eligibility for bonus is that employee must have worked for 30 days in a particular accounting year. So suppose somebody has worked for 25 days in a accounting year, he cannot claim bonus for that year. So minimum bonus is 8.33% and maximum bonus is 20%. It is connected with the balance sheet, profit and loss account of the company. If somebody earns more, then he will be getting more bonus. The minimum bonus is irrespective of the profit or loss. So where the establishment is newly set up, then for the first 5 years, bonus is not required to be paid. But if the employer earns any profit during the first 5 years in any particular accounting year, for that particular accounting year, bonus is to be paid, minimum bonus at the rate of 8.33. However, after 5 years, whether there is a profit or not, no profit, minimum bonus is to be paid by the employer. And the employer is to maintain registers, that is in form A, B, C, which are prescribed under the Act. Abstract is required to be displayed, and penal consequences that for any contravention of the prison's imprisonment up to 3 months or fine up to ₹10,000. Yes.
Any questions on this? So there is some time period in which this has to be paid after the financial year?
Yes, it has to be paid within 8 months from the close of the financial year.
So suppose someone,
by 30th November. By 30th November.
Okay. And if someone
or it can be extended with the permission of the department.
Okay. If some employee leaves during the financial year, suppose July August में उसने job किया 3-4 months and then he left.
If he had put in 30 days, he is entitled to gratuity for that, proportionately for that.
Okay, but time period उसका भी same रहेगा ना? Till when it is to be given?
Same time period.
Okay.
That has to be paid.
Right.
Otherwise, it will be treated as unpaid wages.
Right.
And after 3 years, if somebody doesn't come to you, you will have to deposit it with the Labor Department as Labor Welfare Fund.
Okay. Anyone else has any queries? We can go
available surplus.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
These are the actually technical questions. It would be better if chartered accountant of the company would be the right person to answer this question. Yeah. But normally, available surplus means a profit earned by the employer after the adjustment of all permissible heads like depreciation, income tax, advance income tax, or any development charges or to be spent in the coming future. So these are the factors which are to be excluded from the available surplus. Then it becomes allocable surplus for the purpose of payment of bonus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can go to the next one.
Next one, again, it is a very important enactment, and government is focusing on this act very strongly. This is the maternity benefit in 1961. It is as per the latest amendment that has taken place on 27th of March 2017. In fact, this has been regulated in order to regulate the employment of women in certain establishments for granting them certain benefits because of pregnancy, confinement, childbirth. This is called maternity benefit. It applies to every shop or establishment or a factory in which 10 or more women employees are employed. Women who worked for 80 days in the 12 calendar months immediately preceding the date of her expected delivery is entitled to this benefit. Means thereby, suppose somebody joins today and after a week's time, she wants this benefit, she is not entitled to it. She has to work at least 80 days before the date of her expected date of delivery. So this is a precondition. And second condition is that if that lady is covered under ESI, she cannot claim this benefit under this act. Maximum period of maternity benefit is 26 weeks. And out of 26 weeks, she can avail this benefit 8 weeks before the expected date of delivery and the rest of the weeks after delivery. Then there are other benefits like leave for miscarriage. It is for 6 weeks. Then leave for maximum period of 1 month for illness arising out of pregnancy. Then again, crèche facility. Every establishment where 50 or more women employees are employed, it is obligatory on the part of employer to establish crèche facility inside the premises of that establishment. Maybe a factory, maybe a hospital, maybe any kind of organization, then it is a mandatory provision. And the employer cannot terminate, dismiss or discharge the services of any woman when she is on maternity leave. So the employer has to display extract of the act in his establishment. The employer has to maintain a register under the act. Penal provision on failure to display extract. The focus is on the extract. On failure to display the extract of the act, imprisonment may extend to such and such period or fine. So therefore it is mandatory to display the extract. Why this focus has been given? So that the woman must know about this benefit through this notice, through the extract of the act. Yes.
तो इसका ऐसा भी है, where is it to be displayed in the whole establishment, any particular area which is marked for this?
No, actually, it has to be displayed at the main entrance of the factory where the majority of the workmen or employees pass.
Okay. Yes. And this leave of 1 month for illness arising out of pregnancy, this is extra to 26 weeks because
This is in addition to 26 weeks.
Okay. Right.
Because somebody avails 26 weeks maternity benefit and she comes and requests and makes an application that she is unwell on account of this delivery case, then she can avail that benefit.
Okay. And ESI benefit starts also, it needs 80 days of a period before it is given in ESI? Same way?
There it is 70 days. 70.
Okay, so 70 days of enrollment in ESI makes the person eligible for. Okay.
Yes.
सर कितने दिन पहले इन्फॉर्म किया जाएगा बिफोर गोइंग टू मैटरनिटी लीव?
Maternity leave, she has to inform the employer in advance about his exact date of expected date of delivery. That may be, there is no specific provision in the act, but it should be reasonably in advance time so that the employer can make alternate arrangement in her place if it is necessary.
एंड ये जो 26 वीक्स है ये फिर जैसे मंथली सैलरी होती है वैसे पे करती रहती है एस्टेब्लिशमेंट और
that has to be paid according as if it is a salary.
Okay.
According. Could I take next?
Yeah.
No, this is a sexual harassment of women at workplace. Again, government is emphasizing on this act for its implementation and making awareness here and there so that this concern of the women is taken care of properly by the employer. This act provides for protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace so that it is prevented and addressed properly by the employers. Women here means any category of women. She may be a worker, she may be a manager, she may be a general manager, even she may be a managing director of the company. So it applies to every establishment or a factory. So she may be ad hoc, she may be temporary, or through the contractor. Any category of woman, if employed in an organization, so she has to take the benefit of this sector. So for this purpose, it is mandatory and obligatory on the part of the employer to constitute an internal committee, which is called complaints committee. Internal committee in its establishment, which consists of a chairperson. Chairperson means a female. Complaints committee is to be headed by a female, and the rest of the members, 2 members from the male side and 2 members from the female side. The employer has to notify, shall notify the internal complaints committee by an order in writing, so that all the persons, including the women, must know about the constitution, about the existence of the committee. So sexual harassment includes physical contact and advances, a demand or request for sexual favors, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, any other unwelcome physical, verbal or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature or similar conduct. This subcommittee is to deal with the complaints received from the aggrieved women, and it has to give its verdict after giving show cause notice to the delinquent, relying upon the evidence led by both the parties, by the victim as well as by the accused. It has to give its verdict and judgment, and on the basis of the findings of the complaint committee, the employer has to take an action against the delinquent employee, which includes written apology, warning, withholding of promotion, termination from the service. And during the pendency of the inquiry, the complaints committee may recommend to the employer to restrain the accused from reporting on work. So these are the basically. The employer has to submit annual report by 31st of December every year to the nodal officer appointed by the government under the Act. Penal provision. Where the employer fails to constitute an internal management committee, action can be taken, and action is not taken against the accused or contravention of any of the provision, he is liable for fine which may extend to rupees 50,000. The employer is to display the POSH policy in its establishment. So this is what this.
Yeah, again a very important, and more and more cases are coming up as complaints are coming up. Even in big corporates also we see against directors and all the complaints come.
Yes. So many cases are coming up, and employers are focusing on it. Mr. Jacob, are you hearing it to me? Mr. Jacob? No, somebody was there on the line. He is handling such cases actually. I want to talk to him.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, is this only for women or males are also considered?
Males, but this act is only for the women. This act deals with the protection of the women from sexual harassment at workplace.
सर if like अगर कोई woman गलत जैसे कर देती है, किसी पे गलत इल्जाम लगा देती है, then
she is also liable for strict action as if she is delinquent.
And we have to submit the annual report if the 31st of December in every year, if there is no case also.
Yes, nil report can be filed with the nodal officer appointed.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
इसकी कंप्लाइंस का वो भी है ना कि काफी ट्रेनिंग्स वगैरह रिकॉर्ड रखना होता है एंड ऑल, so that if there is any checking out.
The complaints committee is to make a record of each and everything. First, the complaint is to be made in written or oral to the committee. The committee has to make proceedings and note down the proceedings of each and every evidence is to be recorded, and on the basis of that evidence, it has to be give its verdict.
Okay. And probably regular trainings and awareness campaigns and trainings, etc., have to be done.
I think
during-
it is necessary. It
It
should
is,
be
yeah.
conducted from
Yes,
time to
yes,
time.
yes.
It would be better in the interest of the
Yeah.
organization.
Any queries regarding this? Okay, next one, please. Next. Yeah, we can take the next one.
This is the Shops and Commercial Establishment Act 1958. This act applies to all the shops, all the commercial establishments, and non-commercial establishments. Where the Factory Act 1948 does not apply, this act applies to those organizations, those shops, and those commercial establishments. This act is to regulate the work in those establishments and employment of employees in those shops and establishments. It provides for opening hours of a shop and commercial establishment. It provides for closing hours of a shop and commercial establishment. It provides for interval of rest and meals. It provides for earned leaves, casual leaves, and sick leaves of employees, those who are working in those shops and establishments. It provides for wage period and deduction therefrom. It provides for payment of overtime if the employee works more than 8 hours a day. The provisions like opening hours and closing hours of this act do not apply to certain establishments like hotels, hospitals, shops dealing with newspaper industries or newspaper business, and dealing exclusively in medicine, medical or surgical, etc. For example, hotel can be opened at any time, it can be closed at any time. So these conditions are similarly in hospitals also. These provisions would not apply because of the nature of the work or services they are being given. The owner of the shop or commercial establishment is to obtain license in Form F from the inspector of shops. It is renewable on a yearly basis. The registers like register of employees in Form C and payment of wages in Form D are to be maintained under this act by the employer. Yes.
Yeah, any questions on this? This is again a very important act because तो इसमें even clinics को भी register करना होता है, only hospitals को?
Anything which falls in the category of a shop or commercial establishment. I think clinic is not does not fall in that category, but hospitals, once it becomes a commercial establishment, then it will apply to hospital also.
Okay, because technically तो clinic भी जैसे हम लोग अगर
clinics which are situated in a commercial sites in markets, then it will apply. But if it is running from a house, and then it will not apply.
Okay. Yes. So it is basically one-time registration, or it has to be renewed also?
Renewable, yeah, on a yearly basis.
On every year we have to renew. Okay.
Yes, it has to be.
Okay.
Any condition of number of employees?
No number. Even if the shop is being run by an employer, he will have to get the license under the shop. For the purpose, at least for the purpose of opening and closing and observing holidays, etc.
For registers of employees?
Register of employees not required in that case.
Up to how many number of employees?
No. If it is run only by the employer, then register of employees is not required. But even if one employee is working, then that register is required.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Dinesh. Dr. Dinesh is from Amravati, Maharashtra. So we are having a very wide spectrum of doctors joining us from Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, even Northeast also. It's a very important topic. Yeah, Dr. Ashok Gupta, you want to ask something? Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay.
May I know how many doctors are participating in this session tentatively?
At present, there are around 31. and we have a registration of 170. So we will be sending the recording to all, because everyone may not be able to attend on a Sunday evening.
Right.
So the number of ELs and CLs, they are same all over the country, or it is state specific?
It is almost same. Currently, 7 days casual leave and
Okay.
7 days sick leave,
Okay.
which lapse at the end of the year.
Right.
Then there are privileged leave or earned leave, which is called earned leave. 1 day for every 20 days work performed is earned leave. These are 3 kinds of basically leaves.
Okay.
And in addition to that, there are holidays, which are called national and festival holidays. National, 3 national holidays: 1st January, 2nd of October, and 15th August.
26 January, yeah.
26th
Yeah, 26
January,
January. Yeah,
15th August, and yes.
Yes.
And then festival holidays.
Okay.
In every state, there are different, number of holidays are being observed as festival holidays. In the state of Punjab, there are 4 festival holidays like Diwali and
probably Holi
Christmas,
or right.
Holi and like.
Yes. Overtime and all also has a number of rules and regulations. How much overtime and all?
Yes. Even under the Shops Act, if somebody puts a duty or hours more than 8 hours a day, he is entitled to overtime payment at double the rate of his ordinary payment of wages.
Okay.
So he will be getting double rate. Suppose his hourly rate is 50 rupees per hour.
Yes.
So if he puts 1 hour, he will be getting 100 rupees for that extra.
Okay. So is it mandatory to maintain timings of staff also, or a PNL register can also be satisfactory?
No, under the Shops Act, there is a period of which is called spread over.
Okay.
The maximum duty which can be spread over is 10 hours.
Right.
But actual duty should be only 8 hours.
Okay.
So one can report at 10 in the morning, then he can work 8 in the evening, that is 10 hours. But for 2 hours, he will have to be on rest, which is called interval. Actual duty would be 8 hours, maximum spread over would be 10 hours.
Okay. But is it mandatory for an organization to maintain timing of entry and exit of employees, or only present, leave and absent and sick register can also be there, attendance register kind of?
If somebody creates a question, our department comes, then we will have to convince them that we are taking 8 hours duty. For that, there must be a record showing them to convince them that
timing also.
We are not taking any overtime, they are working only for 8 hours.
Any other questions on this? Next week. We can go to the next one.
This is the Payment of Wages Act 1936. This act has been actually prescribed or enacted only for 2 reasons. One, that there must be a time limit to make the payment of wages. And second one, that there should not be any illegal or unauthorized deductions from the wages of the employees. This is the objective and statement or reasons for the enactment of this act. Under this act, where the strength is more than 1,000 number employees, salary has to be paid by 7th of month, every month. Where the number is more than 1,000, the payment of wages can be paid by 10th of every month. This is the one object of this act. And second one, that there should not be any unauthorized deductions. The employer cannot of his own cannot make unnecessary deductions from the wages of the The permissible deductions are, first is the statutory deductions, the provident fund deduction, the ESI deduction, the income tax deduction, TDS, or any loan. If the employee has taken a loan, you can deduct that amount from any amount paid to him as an advance, that can be deducted to him. But you cannot unilaterally deduct any amount that has to be deducted personally. Only as permissible under the Act, under Section 7 of the Act, those deductions can be made from the wages. This is the purpose of the Act. And for this purpose, the employer has to maintain registers. There are at least 6 of the registers are there. One is the register of wages. Second one, register of fines, register of deductions, register of losses and damages, register of advances, register of overtime. These are the registers which are to be maintained by the employer. Penal conditions are there. Contravention of any of the provisions attracts 5,000 rupees fine, and for failing to maintain register under the Act, the fine shall not be less than rupees 5,000. So these are the penal provisions of this Act.
Okay.
It is a very small Act, but it is very necessary so that you cannot make the payment as per your desire and wish. That I cannot make the payment on 7th, I will make the payment on 25th of the month. It has to be paid according to this.
So regarding this register, yeah, please. Yeah.
If somebody fails to make the payment in time, the employee can approach the authority under the Payment of Wages Act,
Right.
and the authority is competent to impose a penalty on the employer for non-payment of those wages and delayed wages.
इसमें कुछ कंपनियां इंश्योरेंस के नाम पे भी डिडक्शन करती हैं एम्प्लॉय
Yes, it is again a principle. If somebody is covered under the ESI and he has given an undertaking in a writing to the employer that he wants to make the premium from his salary, then he can give a writing to the employer, and up to that extent that can be deducted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Okay, we can go to the next one.
This is the Minimum Wages Act 1948. Sometimes the Payment of Wages Act and the Minimum Wages are confused by the employers. The purpose of both the acts are different. I have already explained the purpose of the Payment of Wages Act 1936. The purpose of this act is that this act has been framed with a view that the workers should get at least the bare minimum wages. That is why this act has been framed. They have not been left at the mercy of the employers. And that is why certain criteria, certain parameters have been fixed under this act, that the appropriate government from time to time, on the basis of the price index, they will have to revise and increase the minimum wages, just for the survival, bare survival of the workmen. So this rate has been fixed, is to be fixed by the government from time to time, just for this bare survival of the workmen. Recently, the Supreme Court has held that if an organization or an enterprise who is not in a position to pay the bare minimum wages to his employees, he has no legal right to exist. The importance has been emphasized by the Supreme Court that whosoever wants to run a factory or a hospital or a hotel or any enterprise, he first ensure that he will be paying the bare minimum wages fixed by the government from time to time. So under this act, if a worker works more than 8 hours a day, so he is again entitled to the overtime wages. It applies to all categories of workers. Those may be employed directly or indirectly, temporary or permanent, or hired through a contractor. So contractor is also to ensure compliance of this act. Contractor cannot say, or employer cannot say, that because of this thing, I cannot afford to make the payment of minimum wages. And the employer has to, principal employer has to ensure that the contractor is making compliance of this act. Otherwise, ultimately, principal employer can be held liable for under this act. So under this act, the employer is to issue salary slip every month to its employees so that it can be ascertained from that salary slip to the worker and to the authorities that the proper compliance of this act is made. Only deductions, permissible deductions can be made from the rate of minimum wage, not anything else. The authority under the act is competent to decide and determine the claim of the worker, which is with a penalty to the extent of 10 times of the actual amount of due. Suppose somebody is not making the payment of minimum wages, and the worker concerned, aggrieved worker, can approach and prove before the authority that he is not getting the minimum wages, and the that amount comes to rupees 5,000, and 10 times up to 50,000 rupees penalty can be imposed by the authority under the act. Yes.
Yeah, any questions on this? इसमें शर्मा जी, sometimes we have a person who is not trained at all, and gradually we train that person, and sometimes you name that person as a trainee कि first 1 year के लिए वो trainee है and then probably regular job में होगा. तो is there any provision like this कि trainee हम रख सकते हैं जो कि minimum wages से कम पे भी हो?
See, in most of the organizations, the employers are doing this exercise, which is absolutely illegal.
Okay.
Those trainees, those persons who are engaged under the Apprentice Act 1961, they are exempted from the provisions of the Provident Fund Act, as well as from the provisions of the ESA Act, as well as from the provisions of the Minimum Wages Act. They can be paid stipend as prescribed under the Apprentice Act 1961. There is no other category which is called trainee, which can be given less than the minimum wages, or which no other category as a trainee can be taken or exempted under the Provident Fund Act or under the ESA. Only persons who are engaged through the Apprentice Act, they are called apprentice or trainees. For that matter, some exemptions are there, and those exemptions are under the Provident Fund Act, ESI Act, and under the minimum wage.
Okay. So that means it is not that an organization can name somebody as apprentice. It has to come through the Apprenticeship Act registration through that.
Yes. Okay. Then you can give him stipend in lieu of the minimum wages. That can be even less than the minimum rate of wages.
Right. Okay.
Now that is normally prescribed by the under the Apprentice Act.
Okay.
For a particular trade from time to
time. Yes. Any questions in this?
Yes, sir. I have a question, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
सर, जो भी अप्रेंटिसशिप एक्ट के रिगार्डिंग जो भी चल रही है हमारी डिस्कशन, उसमें अगर वो जो स्टाफ वर्क कर रहा है, अगर उस केस में उसको कुछ मिसहैपनिंग हो जाती है, then who will be the responsible, or an organization will be responsible?
Then there are two options. One option is that you cover him, that person, under the ESI. Though it is not obligatory on your part, but you can cover him under the ESI. Second, you take a policy under the WC policy, workman compensation policy for him, and if something happens to him, you will be getting the benefit from the from the insurance company under that policy.
So WC Act में उसको रख सकते हैं, हाँ. Yes.
You can do that.
Right.
You can do that.
Right. Okay. Yes. And वो चीज क्लियर हो गई कि that basic wages has to be same as minimum wages, ऐसा कुछ था ना?
Yes. Under the Provident Fund Act, now the Supreme Court has given a verdict. So if somebody gives a salary less than the minimum wages or fixes basic pay less than the minimum wages, that is wrong. The basic pay should be at least equal to the minimum wages notified by the effort government from time to time.
Okay. So that means if somebody is getting minimum wages, say 10,000, out of which 30% is HRA, and so 3,000 is HRA and 7,000 is basic wages, but the calculation will be on 10,000 instead.
No, no. From the minimum wages, HRA can be excluded for the purpose of imposition of provident fund.
Okay. So calculation will be on
HRA can be
7,000.
excluded.
Okay.
Yes, HRA can be excluded even from the minimum wages for the purpose of applicability of the provident fund.
All right. Okay. Right. Any other questions? We can take the next one.
So this is the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act 1970. From the name itself, this act deals with two things: the regulation of the contract labor. Regulation means regulation of employment of the contract labor, and abolition of the contract labor in certain cases, in certain circumstances. So this contract labor here means the manpower being outsourced through the contractor. Before I go ahead with this act, I would like to explain there are two kinds of contracts. One is the contract labor hired through the contractor, and the other employees who are hired on contract. So there is a difference between two categories. When I say that the employees are hired through the contractor, it means they are being outsourced from a third party, which is normally called as a vendor or a contractor. When I say that the employee has been engaged on contract basis, means thereby that person is my employee, but he has been hired on contract basis. He is not a permanent employee. His terms and conditions are different. His terms and conditions would be as per that contract. Maybe he is hired for 1 year, maybe he is hired for 2 years. So his employment would be regulated as per the contract of that agreement. So here we are dealing with a contract labor. Contract labor which is hired, which is engaged through the contractor. Like in many organizations, security staff is hired through the contractor. Malis and gardeners are hired through the contractor. Means thereby you can hire an activity which is ancillary and is allied to the main activity of the organization. You cannot hire contract labor for a permanent nature of job, for an activity which is your main activity. For ancillary activities, you can hire a contract labor from the contractor. And this act applies to an establishment in which 20 or more such contract labor is engaged. And for that matter, the employer has to take a registration. Principal employer, which is called a principal employer, has to get itself registered under the act. And similarly, the contractor is also get a license under the act. Again, I will repeat, if the number is less than 20, then act will not apply. 20 means contract labor outsourced. If suppose you have hired through the contractor 10 people, then this act would not apply to you. Neither you are required to get registration under the act, nor the contractor is required to get license under this act. But in another situation, suppose there are two contractors, they are outsourcing you. One gives you 12 people, the other gives you 11 people. The total is 23. For that matter, you will have to get yourself registered under the act because the number exceeds 20. But both the contractors are not required to take a license from the licensing authority under this act because the number is less than 20. So under this act,
रिसेंटली अभी इसमें कुछ
yes, pardon.
सर रिसेंटली अभी इस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लेबर लाइसेंस में कुछ चेंजेस आए जैसे 50
That is
less than 50
this government of Haryana has changed, not the UT administration. The Punjab government has not done anything so far. It is only the Haryana government, they have extended this limit to 50 recently.
हरियाणा एंड उत्तराखंड सर
Uttarakhand, I am not aware of exactly, but I am aware of this Haryana government. They have extended this limit instead of 20 to 50. Now, in the first instance, the contractor has to pay wages to his contract labor. Of course, he will have to take the payment from the employer as per the settled terms and conditions, subject to payment of minimum wages, subject to compliance of provident fund, subject to compliance of ESI. Then he will make the payment first at the first instance. But if he fails to make the payment, then employer is liable to make the payment as a principal employer. The principal employer is to maintain a register of contractors, and the contractor is to maintain a register of contract labor. Penal provision for violating the provision of this act, imprisonment for 3 months or fine up to ₹1,000. And the employer and the contractor both can be prosecuted under this act on the complaint made by the labor inspector concerned.
So contract labor only allied services के लिए ले सकते हैं. That means the hospital cannot take nurses for on contract.
No. It is not permissible because it is the main activity of the hospital. Or it would amount to unfair labor practice.
Okay. But government में तो ले रहे हैं वो doctors को भी, nurses को भी, government hospitals में तो job दे रहे हैं.
There this act does not apply. They have their own rules and regulations.
Okay.
सर मैक्सिमम ऑफिस स्टाफ भी अब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बेसिस पे ही लिया जा रहा है.
The people are taking it. I am not saying that they are not taking it. I am just sharing with you what this act says.
Yes, here is a big hospital. Nearly 215 employees are there. All are employed through contract labor.
I am giving you an example in the labor courts and industrial tribunals. They are taking the staff for permanent nature of work through the contractors. But when they deal with the private sector, dealing with such matters, they decide the cases in the private sector. So this is a unique situation which I don't want to comment on it. But I am sharing with you the exact position of law which is permissible under the act.
तो probably वो लोग देख रहे होंगे जो penal provision है वो 1,000 rupees ही है तो चलो चांस ले लेते हैं. या आप बचा लोगे इनको बाद में. No. Again, I will share with you a very important aspect of this. Yes.
These penal provisions are meant where you are violating the provisions of the act. But other aspect is very important. The contract labor after certain period can approach the labor court for permanent nature of job. They will say that we have been engaged by the principal employer for a job which we were not supposed to be had through the contractor. So we should be dealt as a permanent employee and we should be given all the benefits from past, from the date of their joining. And the labor courts are full of such similar cases as of date. People are approaching the labor courts on two accounts, that the employer was not competent to engage us as a contract labor. We were to be taken as a permanent employee. So therefore, we should be treated as a permanent employee from that date. Number one. Number two, that we should be paid wages as if we were a permanent employee, on the same pattern as if the permanent employees have been taken. So this aspect is also very important.
Yes, right. Any other queries on this? We can go to the next one. Next we can take next.
This is the act which I think most of the hospitals, most of the doctors may have not heard about it, or if they have heard about it, they may not be knowing the complications of this act. It is the act which deals with the investigation and settlement of the industrial disputes between the workmen and their employers. There may be mainly there are two kinds of industrial disputes. One is regarding the alleged illegal terminations of the employees. As per the provisions of this act, if somebody works for 240 days in the preceding 12 calendar months, he cannot be simply terminated. Even if there is a provision in the appointment letter. This act applies to a workman not to an officer or a manager. A workman here means a person who works in an industry to do any manual, skilled, technical, clerical work is a workman, irrespective of the salary. Though salary has been, mentioned in the act, that is as of date is 24,000 rupees per month. But the function is the main criteria to decide whether that person is a workman or not workman. Suppose in a hospital, one manager is working, but nobody is reporting to him. He is doing his job of his own. He is working on computer. He is not controlling any manpower working under him. He doesn't have any administrator or supervisory powers. So whether he is getting more than 24,000 rupees or not, it will not change his status. He will remain to be the workman. So if he is a workman, he can avail the benefits of this act. Are you listening to me, Dr. Neeraj?
Yes.
Yes. Your photo is not coming on the screen, man.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I have muted the video. Yeah.
Yes. So it is the function which decides whether any particular person is a workman or not. So any workman, if he is a workman, he can get the benefit of this act. So if he puts in 240 days in the preceding 12 calendar months, and if he is terminated for any reason whatsoever, suppose he is dismissed on account of misconduct, but no inquiry has been held, he is simply terminated as per the provisions of the appointment letter, it is illegal. So he can approach the labor court through the labor authorities, and he can be inserted by the labor court with back wages and with continuity of service. It is a very, very important enactment. This is one aspect for which the workman can approach the labor department, labor court. And second one is for claiming his dues. Suppose some amount is there which the employer fails to make the payment or refuse to make the payment. For that matter, under section 33C2 of the Act, he can directly approach the labor court and claim those amount from the employer. And the employer, as a summary suit, he can decide that application. So under this act, the labor court is competent to decide the various terms and conditions which are prevalent and existing between the parties, whether those terms and conditions are legal or not legal. The court can look into that aspect and give its judgment. So there are other provisions in the act like layoff and retrenchment. Under certain circumstances, the employer cannot declare layoff or retrenchment without making compliance to the various provisions of the act, like permission from the government or giving a notice and compensation on account of retrenchment or layoff compensation. Committing any unfair labor practice, this act provides for imprisonment up to 6 months or a fine which may extend to 3,000 rupees. There is a prohibition under the act that workmen cannot go on illegal strike, and similarly, the employer cannot declare lockout under this. Yes.
So that means, though the name is Industrial Act, but it is applicable on services also. It is applicable on the hospitals also. That is one.
It applies to industry. It applies to industry. I have given the definition of industry on the first page.
Yes.
Industry means any systematic activity carried on by cooperation between the employer and his workmen for production, supply or distribution of goods or services, with a view to satisfy human needs in industry. Yes. So all these hospitals fall in the category of industry.
Okay. And there is no criteria of strength
do not employees. Get the benefit of industry.
Dr. Ashok Gupta, repeat karenge? Yes.
Hospitals for all other purposes not categorized under the industries. They don't get the benefit passed to industries.
I don't know which industry you are talking of. Industry has been specifically defined under the Industrial Dispute Act. Under section 2J, small j of the Industrial Disputes Act.
Sir, you are right. Like if there is an industrial state,
Yes. Not getting your voice.
हाँ नहीं उनका वो डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया. He is offline. Probably he'll join again. He is offline now.
I think he wanted to tell me.
हाँ
I
इसमें
think he wanted to tell me.
yeah yes
He wanted to tell me that hospitals are not getting benefit of the industry
yes
because they
yes.
have not been defined as industry under various other laws. But
Yes,
it
yes,
has been
yes.
specifically mentioned as industry and in the industry.
yes yes. तो इसमें टर्मिनेशन जो है सपोज कोई डिसिप्लिनरी एक्शन है किसी ने थेफ्ट किया है किसी ने कोई सीरियस एक्शन किया है then there must be some provision of termination. How do we go about it?
There is a provision under the Model Standing Orders Act 1948.
Okay.
Model Standing Order deals with all those contingencies. It prescribes the list of the offences which is called misconduct and procedure like appointment of the inquiry, holding an inquiry and imposition of penalty and punishment, which includes dismissal and termination.
So every organization has to register for that also, or we have to prepare a standing order? Yeah. Yes.
Model Standing Orders automatically applies to an organization where 20 or more people are employed.
Okay.
Employees are employed.
Okay. So that has a list of issues which are into misconduct, which are categorized into misconduct.
Yes. Yes.
So we can make some changes also in the issues depending on our.
You can make according to the nature of the business. You can add or delete certain things.
Okay. And there is issue of absconding also, no? Because sometimes अचानक ही employee चला जाता है, then you keep on waiting. Yeah.
This is called unauthorized absenteeism.
Okay.
If somebody is not intimating you and he is remaining absent, but for that matter, you will have to send 1 or 2 notices to him.
Okay.
And after that, you can presume that he is absconding or he has abandoned the service of his own. You will have to send at least 2-3 notices to him so that he should join duty.
Okay. So उसका कोई time period है that how many days after he or she doesn't come back, or then we can take.
You should give him at least 7 days time to report for duty.
Okay,
7 days time to report for duty, and then after 7 days again send a notice, and then again send a notice, and thereafter pass a final order.
All right. Okay. Any other queries on this?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Tanvi.
Yes, sir. What I understood, there are Factories Act and then Shop and Establishment Act.
Yes.
These are 2 areas, and what I've heard that government is trying to simplify, and there will be few regulations only.
Yes.
उस पे सर कुछ बता सकते हैं?
There are coming two acts are coming. One is the Code of Wages Act. So it will take care of 4 enactments. One is the Payment of Wages Act, the Payment of Bonus Act, the Equal Remuneration Act, and the Payment of Minimum Wages Act. One act which would be calling a Code of Wages Act. It will be, I think, through in the coming session, and it will take care of all these 4 enactments. The rest of the things would remain same, but some stringent provisions have been made for non-compliance of the act. Suppose today there is a provision of penalty of 100 rupees, so that 100 rupees will be 10,000 rupees in the Code of Wages Act. The rest of the provisions are almost same. They are consolidating the provisions instead of this, because as on date, in each enactment there is a definition of different definition is there. So in order to consolidate all these acts, all these definitions, they are coming up with one enactment keeping one segment, one definition for one thing. There should not be confusion on different definitions. The purpose. And second act is coming, that is called Industrial Relations Act, Code of Industrial Relations. I think again things would be provisions would be same, but some flexibility is there. Today, if you want to retrench a person, you will have to give 15 days compensation for every completed year of service. But there would be a flexibility in hire and fire. But today it is difficult. You will have to get a permission if the number is more than 100 in an organization. You will have to get the permission from the concerned authority, which is a very, very cumbersome and very, very technical procedure. And in many cases, you will not get the permission from the department. And that 100 number is now being extended to 300 employees criteria. Means thereby, the act which the government is planning, you need not to take permission if in an organization the number is up to 300 as far as the employees are concerned or workers are concerned. You can straight away terminate the persons, retrench the people without permission, but you will have to pay more compensation. Yes, Dr.
Yeah, any other question, please?
Yeah.
We can go to the next one, Sharma.
No, it is already over. I have planned for this.
Okay.
11,
I
12
just got
today,
disconnected.
for today.
Okay. So you can stop screen sharing. You can stop screen sharing.
You can stop this activity.
स्टॉप नो स्क्रीन शेयरिंग ऊपर से ना जहाँ ग्रीन है वहाँ पे वो स्टॉप
Screen
स्क्रीन
sharing,
शेयरिंग आता है हाँ स्टॉप
Screen
स्क्रीन
sharing,
शेयरिंग
Stop screen sharing.
yeah so we have last 10 minutes you will any sorry my net also is now probably tired so any other queries a quick any questions
May I?
yeah sure
It's not a question, but just sharing.
yes
The inspectors those are coming under Shop and Installation Act. They ask for making bank payment either by check or online payment. Now, what practical issues are that the staff many times demand advance one time or some, for example, some staff is having salary of 10,000. He will demand 2,000 rupees in between, and then again after a few days he will demand 1,000 rupees. And most many time he will take advance. Sir, मुझे 5,000 रुपये ज़्यादा दे दो महीने में. So all these things are difficult to manage by doing online transaction or bank transactions. So my question is, sir, is it really compulsory to pay through the banks or digital payment?
okay
It is really compulsory to act, or just the local or local inspectors are insisting, sir?
Should I answer this?
Yes, sir.
yes
See, there is no specific provision under the Act regarding the advances are concerned. It is the discretion of the management, but there is a provision under the Payment of Wages Act that recovery of such loan or advances should not be 25% of the total wages. Suppose somebody is getting total salary is 10,000 rupees. So you cannot deduct 5,000 rupees from his salary because it would be difficult for him to survive for a month. He will again come to you for advance. So it is always better. Advance may be paid as per the salary the person is drawing. Suppose somebody is getting 10,000 rupees, you can give him 5,000 rupees advance, recoverable in 12 equal installments or 6 equal installments, and that should not become more than 25% of the total salary he is getting. It can be paid through online. It can be even paid by cash. There is no problem, but it should be authenticated document. It should not be hanky-panky for the purpose of manipulation of minimum wage or this, that. In today's world, there are organizations, they are not paying minimum wages, but they are showing on paper they are paying minimum wages and they are taking it back in the shape of advances, which is not done. This is unfair labor practice.
But it is not compulsory to pay by check. You can give cash. That is clear.
No, as of date, wages are to be paid either online or through bank transfer or by check. Cash is already not permissible. There is in 2018 there is a notification under the Payment of Wages Act. Payment of wages cannot be made these days by cash.
Okay.
Only advance or bonus can be paid by cash against a authenticate document.
Okay, so advance can be paid by cash. Okay.
Advance or payment of bonus, because
Okay.
bonus is normally paid at the time of festival
Diwali
season.
and yeah, festival.
So if you
Yeah.
pay one day before the
Yes.
Diwali through
Yes,
bank transfer and next day is a holiday, they may not be
Yes.
able to celebrate Diwali.
Yes.
So that is why
Yes,
this
yes.
provision has been.
Okay. Okay.
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है,
Yes.
जितने भी रिकॉर्ड हैं चाहे पीएफ के, ईएसआई के और लेबर डिपार्टमेंट के, ये रिकॉर्ड कितने इयर्स तक हमें रखने होते हैं?
7 years.
सारे सर?
7 years.
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू।
Very important question. Yes, it's very important.
सर इसमें एक मेरा भी एक क्वेश्चन था इसी के क्वेश्चन के साथ में ही कि यदि कोई इंस्पेक्टर या कोई अथॉरिटी आती है तो वो कितने साल तक का पास्ट का रिकॉर्ड पूछती है आपसे और हम बाध्य हैं एज ए एम्प्लॉयर?
See, there is a provision under the Act except the Provident Fund Act. 7 years. They will not ask you the record more than 7 years, neither under Bonus Act, Provident Fund Act, Gratuity Act. But under the Provident Fund Act, there is no specific time limit is prescribed. If they find any discrepancy, they can look into, they can ask you to present the record maybe for 10 years. But sometimes courts, appellate court or the high courts will look into this aspect and they can confine the area. But there is no provision under the Act as per the Provident Fund Act.
Okay, sir.
May I speak?
Yeah,
Under
Dr. Dinesh, yeah.
Act, is there some provision that I heard that if the number of employees are up to 9, you have to just give intimation to the local authorities, and there is no need to take certificate as such.
Which
But
certificate?
if you are having 10 or more employees, you have to take proper certificate by paying fees. Though
Which-
the laws are record maintenance all are same, but this is the difference somewhere I heard.
Which certificate you are talking of, under which Act?
Shop and establishment.
This Shops Act does not apply to numbers. It applies to even if there is no employee. So record is to be maintained when there is employee. If employee is there, suppose one employee is there, you will have to maintain a record for his salary and for his leaves, for his opening hours, for his holidays, etc. That has to be maintained.
Okay, sir.
It is for any commercial establishment, basically.
Yes.
As you said. Yeah. So I think we should stop the session. I know it is such a lively topic that it can extend for the whole day also. But you all will agree that Advocate D.P. Sharma, in very simple language and presentation, he has highlighted the important points of various laws. Of course, we can go in depth in any, but at least if we are aware of all this, we can see that they are implemented in right spirit also, and as much as possible we comply with all this. So I really thank Advocate Sharma for spending 2 hours with us, and thank all the delegates also. Don't miss the next session. Next Sunday will be on a very different topic, and that is lean management in hospitals or clinics. Lean management, as we know, is a very popular term in industry on how to reduce waste and how to increase efficiency and better usage of resources. And we have a very senior person and expert in this, Mr. Avinash Gupta, who is a software engineer plus management person who will be taking us through. So we will keep it again very simple and as applicable to clinics and small hospitals. and probably in this challenging times, it will help us in conserving our resources, better utilization of resources. So don't miss out on next Sunday. The session will be on lean management and 5S as applicable to medical establishments. Thank you, Sharma ji, again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.